What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of 30 and 30. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about, are you actually training for your goals? To start this episode off, I wanted to give an instance about actually training for your goals. So for example, if I wanted to get good at playing the guitar, what would I do? Would I play the piano or would I actually play the guitar? Now, some of us might think that, well, you are practicing music, so maybe you might benefit some from playing the piano. But let's be realistic. If you want to get good at playing the guitar, you play the damn guitar. And you play it every day, for months on end, until you get good. Until you can strum that guitar, until you can play a tune. So, what am I getting at? I think a lot of you guys can already tell. If you want to be a good bodybuilder, you should probably train like a bodybuilder. And everyone might get a little butthurt on this one, but I see it more often than not, actually, with bodybuilders. Yes, they still train like bodybuilders sometimes, but then in the off season they get a little bit heavier. Their look dissipates a little bit. They don't have the cuts. They get bored with bodybuilding, and then lo and behold, what do they start doing? They start powerlifting. They start training in the very, very low rep ranges. They stop training delts. They stop training arms, and they just focus on the big compound lifts. Awesome. To go back to the first example, if you split half the time playing the piano and playing the guitar, you might get good at both eventually, but it's going to take you way longer to get good at both because you can't be doing both at the same time. And yes, like I said earlier, there is some overlap because obviously you know how to read notes and read music, just like there is some overlap with bodybuilding and powerlifting. It still involves lifting weights. It still involves training at a relatively high intensity, but they are two different things. Yes, you can benefit from training in low rep ranges, just like yes, you can benefit from playing the piano, possibly playing the guitar, because there is some overlap as far as being able to read music and getting rhythm down. But if you find yourself focusing on one thing, such as powerlifting, but your end goal is to be a bodybuilder, then it's like, what are you doing with yourself? Why are you wasting your time? And I think a lot of people just get bored. They lose sight of their long-term goal for their short-term gain. They're like, well, I don't like to train in the bodybuilding rep ranges. I get bored with it. I want to try something else. Well, that's great, but just realize when you allocate time to something else, you're not going to get to your main goal as quickly as you would if you actually stuck to the original plan. So for example, myself, I pretty much bodybuild, all the time. You're rarely going to find me dipping into the lower rep ranges. Anything less than 5 is a rare occasion for me. So I would consider myself almost 100% a bodybuilder all the time. I'm not training in the powerlifting rep ranges. I'm not taking crazy long rest breaks. On the other hand, if you're a power lifter, train like a power lifter. But we're focusing on bodybuilding today. And this past year, I competed against some guys who took some time off to compete in powerlifting. They wanted to try it, and then they decided to come back to bodybuilding, and it showed in their physiques. Whether they thought they were just going to magically come back after this time period and still do as well as they once did when they were bodybuilders, maybe they thought they did, but they didn't because they, it clearly showed in their physiques. And when someone like myself spends, year after year after year focusing on bodybuilding, I'm gonna get good at bodybuilding. I probably suck at powerlifting. I'll be honest. I don't even bench press. You guys know that. I don't barbell squat. and I deadlift, once or twice a month. So if I were to try to enter a powerlifting meet, I would get destroyed. But if I enter a bodybuilding competition, what I'm actually training for, obviously I'm going to do well. So guys, let's try to remember what our long-term goal is. And if your long-term goal is to be a high-level bodybuilder, then you should be training like one. Don't get sidetracked with this powerlifting in the off-season. Because if you want to be a bodybuilder, you should be trained like a bodybuilder all the time. You should only train like a bodybuilder during contest prep and then flip a switch, and then as soon as you start gaining fat, become this powerlifter. Just because, yes, you are heavier doesn't necessarily mean you have to transition into powerlifting. Look at your long-term goal and stick to the plan. I wish I wouldn't have to tell people this, and I wish people wouldn't do this, because then they get mad at themselves like, oh man, I wish I would have grown more in my off season. Well, if you didn't spend the last 2-3 years powerlifting, maybe you would have. So don't be disappointed when you step back on stage next time if you spent the majority of your off-season powerlifting and you haven't made the progress that you wanted to because you were powerlifting. Just like I said earlier, if my goal was to learn how to play the guitar, but I spent all my time or most of my time trying to play the piano, I can't be upset at myself that I can't play the guitar because I didn't allocate the time to it. So guys, we have to remember, we have to train for our goals. So if you're a bodybuilder and you find yourself swaying towards the powerlifting side, just remember in the back of your head, like, you're not going to make as much progress. You're not going to be as good of a bodybuilder as you could have been because you decided to allocate time towards powerlifting. Like I said earlier, yes, there is some overlap, but you definitely have to sway on one side more than the other if you want to get better over time. So that's it, guys, for this episode of 30 and 30. Tune in tomorrow for another episode. I'll see you then.